And like a well-oiled machine, good evening and welcome to another episode of the Green and White Podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. Season's greetings to you and your family. I do hope, on behalf of us all here, that you had a joyous couple of days. Unfortunately, the calendar then did tick over to the 26th of December, and all went awry in the Midlands at the CBS Arena. No, not that American TV channel. Other stations are available on the other side of the pond. The formerly known as the Rico Arena, as Coventry City once again put Argyle to the sword on the road and inflicted another heavy defeat for Wayne Rooney's Argyle. Let's get the usual bits out of the way. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It is an interactive show. We expect it could be a little bit lively this evening. So do get your comments in, and we will once again try our best to go through them, and we will try our best to save some questions. We do have one or two already up our sleeves, and I'm sure one or two things might become talking points as we go. Let's go clockwise then. First of all, Aaron, why am I doing
Hello.
your job?
I don't know. Well, I do know. Basically, I've just lost all feeling and emotion about this club. So I want to spend as little time as I possibly can preparing anything. And I know that I spend as little time as I possibly can anyway preparing for these pods, but less so than ever because. To be honest, even like 5 minutes ago, I thought about sacking this off after watching the highlights on repeat 3 or 4 times. Just what's the point?
Well, the point is that our public want to hear our views, and very shortly, Sam, Dan, they'll be hearing your views. How are you?
Yeah, very good. I'm having to stand up for some reason. I've had to do that for a while. I think my chair must be in use or something because one of the eagle-eyed commenters had noticed. Yeah.
The eagle-eyed commenter who didn't want to join tonight's podcast, you mean? Last but not least, Adam Price, how are you? You've got a chair, you're sat down, you're looking comfortable, ready for tonight's show.
Yeah, comfortable enough. I think I've possibly overindulged in some of the Christmas leftovers, so I'm not all comfortable in the literal sense, and even less comfortable having to spend an hour talking about Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle, as it still is. But yeah, aside from that, it's all good, and thank you for that introduction.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, it is still in the guise of Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle, and that takes us to our first question on X from at Philip Bish 896. Philip, hope you're watching. Can we not recap the game too much? I'm depressed enough as it is. Can we look at how we get out of this and what options or routes we have? Sam Down, answer Philip's wishes. Don't go into the game in too much detail. Coventry 4, Argyle 0. Go.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it to a shortish length of time. Yeah, once again, from the absolute word go, we were nowhere near it in any. Sorry, I'm chuckling away at the comments for the audio viewers.
Come on, Sam. Sam, unlike our team, keep your composure.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it was a shocking performance again. We were nowhere near it from the word go. Coventry came straight out of the blocks and really pushed us back. We couldn't get forward at all. Couldn't get the ball down. Couldn't play. Couldn't handle their attacking play. Really poor goals to concede. Galloway's left 2-on-1. I think young Tegan Finn perhaps didn't quite track back as much as he might have done for the first, and Galloway was left 2-on-1, and then Grimshaw sort of flapped at it a bit, didn't really come and collect it. Again, very preventable goal. The second goal was perhaps even more preventable. It's a very tame shot from the edge of the box, and it took Dan Grimshaw seemingly about 8 light years to get down and dive, by which point the ball was already nestled into the net. Third goal, that one was quite a good counter attack. To be fair, that's probably the one that was the least culpability. I still would say Such doesn't get mega tight to his man, but that's not an absolute stinker. And the fourth goal is probably the most embarrassing of the lot. Grimshaw plays it to Randall under a lot of pressure, which, to be fair, you can say that that's what we do, and when it works, we don't moan about it. So maybe I'll cut Grimshaw a bit of slack for that, but it still probably wasn't quite where he wanted it. And Randall, it's a really bad turn, just sort of gives it straight to their player, and before you know it, he's through on goal, and that's 4-0. And when it's 4-0 at half time, that's it. The game's done. Somebody messaged me privately at half time saying, when did Argyle last come back from 4-0 to get anything? And I don't think it's ever happened, certainly not in my lifetime. Couple of times back from 3-0 and a couple of times we've thrown away a 3-goal lead, but I don't think there's ever been a 4-0 turnaround since I've been a Plymouth Argyle supporter. Just a very dismal game. Like I've been over the 4 goals. I won't go over them too much more forensically than that, because like the question said, I'll try and keep it relatively brief. But the thing that worried me almost more than the goals at the end was the Callum Wright red card, just because we've always said that although whatever Rooney's faults, he's got the players fully playing for him, fully onside, fully spirited, more so than Foster did. And I think that has broadly been true up to now, but that Callum Wright tackle was not good. I'm not going to, I'm not a mind reader. I'm not going to say what was going through his mind, but it looked premeditated, in my honest opinion on it. Maybe I'm wrong. Whether that was just a player who wanted New Year off, or whether it was I'll be honest, my very first thought when I saw it was, that stinks of a player trying to get the manager sacked. And maybe I'm totally wrong. And if I'm Callum, I apologise. But it did not look good, that tackle. It didn't look like he was trying to win the ball. At very best, you could say it was pure anger, pure frustration, no thought behind it, just sliding in, boom, have that, knock him out of the game. But that was a terribly ill-disciplined tackle, and I hope he gets a big fine, because whatever his motivations are, it was a shocking tackle, and he's lucky it didn't more badly injure the player, in all honesty. So sorry to single him out. Everyone in the team was terrible, apart from probably Lewis Gibson. He's the only one who had a good game, and even then we're looking at maybe a 6 out of 10, no more than that. I will be honest with you, I've not mentioned much about the second half, because I'm going to cough up to it before someone else does. For the first time ever, I've never done this before. I left the game at half time. I should add, it wasn't actually my decision. It was I go on a minibus of 15 people, as many of you know. It was the 11-4 majority decision of the minibus. I was on the 4 that wanted to stay, but when it's such a large majority, I didn't want to be the one holding everyone else up. So I did go early, went at halftime. But the good thing about the game being on Sky Sports Plus was, for those of us with a Now TV subscription, we could watch the game on our phone in the bus going home. So I did watch quite a bit of the second half, although not in the ground. The wonders of modern technology. Absolutely shocking performance. And it is absolutely 1 step forward and 2 steps back, isn't it? Because after good performances at Sheffield United, good performance against Middlesbrough, which we got 1 point, should have got 4, maybe even 6. We got 1. And then all of the good work thrown away with possibly one of the worst performances of a very bad season, and deservedly battered by Frank Lampard's Coventry.
Yeah,
14 friends, 15 people on that minibus, but 14 friends, aren't there, Sam?
Yes, 14 customers, I should say.
That's it. Yeah, sorry.
Adam, Sam's tried not to go through it in forensic detail, because I don't think we need to, because I think really it's a rinse and repeat from so many away games this season. Just going through the statistics, 65% of the ball given up to Coventry, an XG of 2 for them, 0.25 for us. Come on to that in a second when I go through my charge sheet with Mr. Rooney in the dock. 19 shots conceded, 9 on target. We only registered 5 with only 1 on target. Coventry completed a staggering 606 passes, of which 296 were in our half of the pitch. You flip that around, 301 passes completed by Argyle. So only 5 more than Coventry completed in our half in total. And only 53 times did we pass the ball in their half. 29 touches in our box to just 7 the other way round. As tepid away performances go, this was right up there, wasn't it? Because that first half, it wasn't even miles off it. We were on a different time zone.
I think for any other team in the division, it would probably be the worst away performance of their season. And we can sit here and debate whether or not it's in our top 3. It says it all. I think that those stats, to be honest, I look at I look at those and think, they kind of, I mean, the domination there is obvious. I kind of think it doesn't do it justice. I think they're actually even more dominant than perhaps some of those stats suggest. I've seen some games this season where 28 touches in our penalty area would feel light. So it's you don't need me to tell you that it's a serious concern. We know it's a serious concern. It's been a serious concern since match day 1. It's you could repeat our comments here after Sheffield Wednesday, after Leeds, after Norwich, after Bristol City, after there's so many that and I've gone through all that and not even mentioned 5-0 at bottom of the league Cardiff. It's beyond a joke at this point. How useless we are in away from home and in these games. And what's particularly annoying, and I know it's been mentioned, is it's come off the back of when it looked like we might have just turned a corner. We might have just, with that Sheffield United performance, that Middlesbrough performance where we deserved at least 4 points, I'd certainly argue. The message was, well, how we view those performances there is going to depend on how we do in the coming weeks, because though that level of performance, I think would have at the very least given Coventry a game and could easily have beaten them if things went away. We didn't even get close to that level of performance. As one of our commenters might suggest, we were light years away from that level of performance. So I'd love to say I'm surprised. I really would, but this was always one step away. And now we look at that 1 point picked up from our good performances at Sheffield United and Middlesbrough, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough at all. Because when you're this bad, so often you've got to pick up points when you actually play well, and we haven't. So yeah, as it's been said, it's 1 step forward, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps back, and without wanting to say it so explicitly, as I'm sure we'll come on to it later on, the writing is very, very much on the wall.
It certainly is. We're only 12 and a half minutes in. By this point, Argyle probably would have conceded by now. There are 670 of you already watching. This is staggering numbers, so do share the live stream around. Aaron, for the first time in these new reversed roles that we've adopted for the evening, I'm going to come to you because whilst it's doom and gloom, we're also history makers. The most goals conceded in Championship history after 22 games. It's a shame it's not a more pleasing record to break, is it?
ROONEY. That's what happens when you hire these record-breaking players. You get record-breaking managerial runs. It's just all a bit pathetic, isn't it? I think somebody commented earlier, I can find it quickly, Michael Lee saying about it being one of the worst performances in Argyle, an Argyle side in his lifetime. And as Adam has already said, there were multiple nominees for that award just this season. During the admin era wasn't even this bad, and at least back then we had, at least some belief. We had to believe in this side, and that's completely gone for me this season. I think it's just it's not even funny anymore. That's the problem. And as Sam will tell you, I will literally laugh at anything. And like yesterday, I was like close to tears because it's just not funny anymore. Like it's beyond embarrassing. I used to quite like fans of opposition sides tweeting us after games, and yesterday I just put my phone on mute and just sat on the coach, basically just staring at the seat in front of me for 3.5, 4 hours. So it's beyond a joke now. I don't know if that answers your question, Joe, but that's all I've got to say.
I would confirm, having Aaron stayed with me and Matt past week, he really does laugh at anything. He's been a fantastic guest staying over Christmas and New Year. He's been very well domesticated. He's not even thrown any burgers on the floor like we know he tends to do at football. So he's been fantastic, but not yet anyway. But Aaron, I think you just spoke very powerfully there, mate, because I think a lot of us are feeling the same. It's like after a lot of the earlier games, it was real anger, and I think then the anger descended to, after the Norwich game, sort of humour as a coping mechanism, like shouting "you're effing," at the Norwich fans just to, distract from our own misery. And then after that, and then the old weirdy Argyle, the mighty Argyle, we never win away. Sort of anger turned to humour, and now the humour has turned to actually, you know what? It's not even funny anymore. It's just total apathy.
It's reached the numbness stage, hasn't it? That I think if we were to ask our friends on the Rotherham podcast, they would probably said they adopted it around this time last year, where there's just a numbness to what's going on, and that's a really tricky thing to snap out of, isn't it? As a whole.
What's worse is those last two games, especially up at Sheffield United, gave us all real belief that, you know, even though we were bottom of the league, we might actually, you know, turn this round. There was enough in that squad, there was enough in that team, there was enough belief in that side that, yes, we might still get beaten. There will still be enough fight that we could stay up, but that's all gone now for me anyway. I think it's purely just a rebuild job for League One now, personally. But it's not often that I agree with Gaz Brownhigh, who often comments on our streams. But you know, he said, "Can't believe that anybody bothers with away games now. It's just a total waste of hard-earned wages." And I completely agree. To the point where I'm not doing another away day this year purely because of it. Because I just cannot bring myself to go to Oxford, because even if we win it, I'm just not asked. The fun of even away days has gone. Like, it used to be a good, you know, piss up with mates, and that's still there. But whilst everybody's basically depressed because the football's so bad, it's not as fun. The travelling's not fun anymore. You know, the opponents aren't fun. Even the occasional dicking under Steven Schumacher was funny. Watching John lose his mind at Peterborough at 5-2 down was hilarious. Just now, it's just not. I just cannot hear "It's a long way back to Plymouth" when you're shit one more time. I just cannot do it for my own sanity.
But you will be at Stoke.
I will be at Stoke, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Could be worse. You could be on your third manager in a calendar year.
And they're still above us in the league.
They are, yes. And even with a win on Sunday, they will still be above us in the league.
Brilliant.
I want to bring in a talking point here, and I want any one of you three to challenge me on this. Is that we're hearing a lot about the injury issues, and quite rightly, they're playing for all to see. Obviously, we lost Mustafa Bundu again yesterday with a non-contact muscle-related injury. When you come in on this, don't elaborate on that point. There's a question coming that way. I would argue that we actually had 7 potentially of our strongest players in respective positions starting that game yesterday. Potentially 8 if you want to have the debate about the goalkeeper. So 8 of our strongest players in perceived positions, thus being obviously the keeper, Mumba, Such, Gibson, Galloway, Randall, JB, Al-Haj, Gray. Potentially those are our 7 best outfield players in those positions. Can someone challenge me on that I'm not right on that? Because I can't fathom that. Yes, all right, we can use the injured excuse when things aren't going our way, but when we've been picking results up at home, people have never said it in conversation. So you can't use it in one argument and not the other, surely.
Yeah, I suppose the only other one potentially would be Edwards, but I would agree with you. I would have Mumba and Galloway as our 2 best fullbacks, particularly given how well they both did in the Sheffield United and Middlesbrough games.
And it should be said, Sam, very quickly. We obviously don't know about Andre Gray, but if you say whichever goalkeeper you decide to go with in your predicted teams for Sunday, we're still going to have 7 of our strongest 11 available on Sunday. So, you know, to be shipping this amount of goals when conceivably we have our best back line and our best 2 sitting midfielders available, what does that say?
Not a lot of good, clearly. It says 2 things. One is that our best isn't that good for this league, which we kind of knew already. And 2, it says that the tactics and defending and lack of coaching is not good, as a comment that's coming up as we speak from somebody called Bartley, who said, sorry, that's just my phone pinging away. I'll put that on mute. who says we don't look organised no matter who is playing. That's the problem. And I could not agree more. I turned to my friend during the game yesterday and I said, I cannot remember an Argyle team that looks this badly coached this consistently. And I can't. Because even under Foster, yes, it was terrible. Yes, he had to go. Yes, he probably should have gone even earlier than he did. But I at least even then saw what he was trying to do. It was meant to be a defensive system that caught teams on the counter. I could kind of just about get the conception of what he was attempting to do, but it just really didn't work out. We didn't execute it well, and even if it was executed well, it was boring. But that doesn't mean there was no plan. There was a plan. I do not know what on earth the plan was yesterday. There was no coherent tactic. We didn't play out from the back. We didn't really go long either. We just panicked every time we got the ball. We didn't get the ball down and play. The total lack of defensive coaching was clear for all to see. Like, goodness me. I know a lot of Argyle fans think Cornell Such is a pretty good player for this league. I think he's a League One player, if I'm honest. But how he, the amount of times that he was just completely out of position, that nobody was telling him where to go. Gibson was going to spare him. Gibson was absolutely losing his rag with Such. Met on a couple of occasions during the game. The fullbacks, I think Galloway was one of the better ones in terms of the performance. I think Galloway had an okay game. If you actually look, not much actually came down the left-hand side, but certainly Mumba, after two really good performances where I thought, come on, maybe, he's starting to justify that £1 million. Mumba was absolutely run ragged. There was no defensive shape.
A heck of a lot was coming down our right-hand side, Sam, wasn't it? Like an obscene amount was just coming down that one channel. And we did nothing. We seemingly did absolutely nothing to try and stop it. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, far more came down their left than came down their right. So I think maybe you have to give some credit to Galloway and Gibson for that. But we just looked like they just met that week. There was no coherency about it. Like the lack of interchange, the lack of knowing where your teammates are meant to be. Like I said, that first goal, Tegan finished 16 years old and he should not have been put in the position of starting yesterday. But, nobody was really shouting him, track back Galloway. And yes, he didn't do it of his own volition either. And I'm sure he is a young lad and he's learning. So really the last thing I want to do is slag off a 16-year-old. But again, it's just one example, along with the example I've given, along with the terrible interchange between Grimshaw and Randall before the fourth. It's just one example of how rubbish we are, how uncoordinated we are. There's another comment coming up from George, who may or may not be in the room, one across from me, saying, I don't know how anyone rates Such. If Gibson is so brilliant, then why are we conceding 4 every week? Well, yeah, I would agree with that. I think Gibson is good, but I think Such is... I think with Corner Such, you've got to remember, centre-backs do peak at a later age. He is only just, 23? So maybe when he's at his peak, he'll be a championship player. I don't think he's one yet. But even so, with players like Such, even players like JB, who I'm sure we'll come on to, you can look after them if you have better organisation around them. If you have a keeper who actually comes off his line, if you have a well-structured, well-organised defensive line, if you look like you spend anything more than about 2 minutes of the week defending set pieces, you can look after players like Such and you can, maybe shout at them a bit and tell them what they're doing, where to go. Comment coming up from Ben saying wasn't meant to come across slagging Finn off. No, I agree. But at the same time, you have to be honest and judge him as with any other player. And any other player, we would say that's poor tracking back. So it's not slagging him off. It's just being honest about where the team's at and where it is. And I'm sure he'll know that himself. Even being a young lad, I think he'll know that. And I think the good thing about Finn was he was at the heart of our only good moment in the game, where he picked up the ball, lovely little shot, keeper saves it, just tips it over the bar. So I'm sure he will be a big player in the future for Plymouth Argyle or for someone else. But he, unfortunately, him for that first goal is just one of many examples of how terribly organised we were defensively. Terrible defensive organisation.
But you've just hit the nail on the head there, Sam. And the fact there's just no leaders in this side. There's absolutely none, apart from the Gibson's occasional shout. But even after watching the highlights back, the ball goes in the back of the net, and he just goes, "Oh well, fuck it, we've lost anyway." Again,
family show,
very family side. Sorry, but it's not my pod today, so Joe can edit out.
We're gonna have a swear jar for the next one.
I absolutely will not be editing this video.
But yeah, it's just a real complete lack of leadership, and I'm sure we'll get on to what's needed in January again, because nobody heard it in the last pod that we did it due to lack of microphones. But I just don't see anybody with any real leadership qualities even coming to us, never mind like us actually sorting that out. So basically just have to just deal with that until the summer now.
It does highlight just how much Joe Edwards is missed to this group, doesn't it? And you're right, Tyler. I will have to find my mute button as the evening progresses. Adam, I want to come to you very quickly. Sam mentions about, Tegan Finn almost being a lamb to the slaughter yesterday, trying to help fill in on that right-hand side. At Argyle, I presume this isn't like somebody using the club's YouTube account here, says the officials were awful as well, but that's no excuse. And Kieran Hurd says Stonewall penalty, mind. We're not going to have a big ref watch segment, but I think it's important while we talk about Tegan Finn and those comments come up. It could have been a lot worse yesterday, couldn't it? Because we've got away with one in the first half.
Easily. I mean, I'm not the ref watch expert amongst the four of us, but that to me seemed to be one of the weirdest and worst decisions I've seen all season. It was one of the most blatant Stonewall penalties that that's not been given that I think I've ever seen. And I mean, I guess fortunately, if you want to put it like that, it was nowhere near to being match defining, as it were. They scored their second, I think, very soon afterwards, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the half. But yeah, it was a strange one. I think on Finn, it a shame to have him in a situation like that. This is a player who celebrated his 12th birthday a week before the first COVID lockdown. So that he's a very, very young man, and he's got a long way to go in the game. I just hope he's got the right people around him to reassure him that it's not his fault. There's so much that went wrong today, and with a little bit of luck, he'd have he'd have scored a goal, which would have been a huge positive to take away from what was a game of many negatives. And
by all accounts, from I think it was Rob McNichol leading the Argyle TV team yesterday. By all accounts, that in a nutshell is Tegan Finn as a player. He's on that right hand side, like Morgan Whittaker, cuts in on the left foot, and he can do that regularly.
Well, he on the left yesterday, Joe.
Yeah, but he switched to the right when Bundu came off.
Yeah, true.
And that's where he had the chance, wasn't it? On the right hand side, cutting in onto his left foot.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah, I was watching a lot of that bit on my mate's phone. You are quite right. Briefly slipped my mind.
Go back to muting yourself.
Happened in the first half. You were watching on your mate's phone. I see.
If
that might be the toilet. Actually, yeah. Sorry, my memory's a little hazy of the day, Adam. I do apologise, but yeah.
No, I don't blame you at all.
If that in a nutshell is what Tegan Finn contributes in an attacking sense, then sure, in a couple of years' time, that's what we've got to look forward to. And as John said, it does feel harsh that we're having to talk about Tegan Finn in this situation, doesn't it? Because it kind of feels like he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
I think it's worth keeping in mind. I just say worth keeping in mind that in 2 years' time, he will be the same age as Freddie Asaka is now, and Asaka is still talked about as a future prospect, and rightly so. That's how far away he is from senior level in literal terms. I mean, I totally agree. It's not a sort of situation you want to throw him into, but as going forward, and I mean, we didn't see much of him. I didn't think there was an awful lot negative about Finn. In that sense, I thought there was a lot of signs of the sort of player he will be. Tracking back's obviously an issue, but yeah, he's 16, and I don't think you can. I think we all agree you can't throw a player like that into a situation like that and expect him to be perfect straight away.
And that's the problem, isn't it? When you're relying on a 16-year-old making his senior debut to come back and track back for senior professionals, and bail them out in a sense, it just lends you to all sorts of issues. Aaron, here's a challenge for you.
Sorry, there's 2 points on Finn. The first one is either really just suggesting this squad is done and I need loads of money in January, which we all know anyway, or the other is he genuinely believes he was ready, which makes me question Rooney even more, because and as the others have said, Finn wasn't our worst player yesterday. I basically stayed where I was going to go half time. If I wasn't on the Pero Express, I would have gone without doubt. And I was only there for my nephew, to be honest. But I only stayed purely just to watch Tegan Finn, just to see how he got on. And I just don't understand why you would throw a child on a football pitch from the start anyway. Ever. By the way, that's like at any club ever. I don't know if there's some clearly no safeguarding laws around that, but
I suppose the counterpoint would be our head coach would say that he was throwing it into 16-year-old and it never did him any harm as a player, certainly. But
it didn't do his understanding of tactical knowledge too much good. So.
No, but
I think there's a lot to question the judgment of our head coach about, and that may be one of many.
And I would argue that the Spanish national team head coach would say that it didn't do them any harm putting in a 16-year-old for the Euros, and he was one of the best players at the tournament. So I think you're going a bit too far the other way there, Aaron. But it should only be done in certain circumstances when it's really warranted. And you know what? Maybe ROONEY will go and we'll get a more competent head coach in, and they'll bring in Tegan Finn, and he will be fantastic, and it will prove warranted. Like Adam said, there were some good moments. I honestly wouldn't rule out that might happen. But putting him in this environment when we're so poor, when there's clearly such a bad atmosphere about the club, that to me was not the right decision. I would have played Saka, who is also still young. I think is also not quite good enough for this league at the moment, but certainly is at least more experienced and has already got a goal at this level. So it would have been a less of an ask for him to come into the team in that scenario than it would have been for Tegan Finn. But look, again, I think we're all agreed. Not I don't think Tegan Finn is the new Lamine Yamal, to be clear. But what I'm saying is that in a situation where it is a functioning, healthy team and the 16-year-old is that good, is that I wouldn't rule out putting them in that circumstance. Is the wider point I'm making it. But I think we're all agreed he did show some good signs, and hopefully if the rumblings that we're going for Category B Academy with Brickfields do turn out to be true, hopefully he'll be one of the earliest at Fulston Park, quite right. Hopefully he will be one of the earliest beneficiaries of that. I think he might well be.
Well, as we know from the financial report, we have plenty of cash earmarked for that project. Aaron, I want to set you a challenge if I can. When you're finished laughing at Argyle 83's comment on screen, for the audio listeners, our front two are so young they still believe in Santa. I mean, it's the season of goodwill and festive joy, isn't it? So, Aaron, I'm going to set you a challenge. Who was man of the match yesterday?
What for us?
Yeah.
Easy answer here, in my view.
Tegan Finn.
Lewis
Tegan
Gibson.
Finn. Sam.
Lewis Gibson.
Lewis Gibson.
You cannot give a defender who's conceded 4 times man of the match.
He wasn't at fault for any of them, and he stopped it being worse.
Adam?
Yeah, I lean closer to Sam on this one. I'd probably go for Gibson as well. It's unfortunate that 4 goals have gone. But I look at for example, when we were at Sheffield Wednesday and Connor Hazard was our man of the match in spite of conceding 4. Sometimes it's just the situation of the game and the setup that makes it happen. So yeah, Gibson man of the match yesterday. That's not to say he performed fantastically. It's just a best of a very, very bad bunch.
I personally will Crossroads Podcast UK says the referee was the man of the match. Well, he was, because he might have saved us from another goal conceded. I will personally throw a little tentative vote in for Darko JB, who potentially was our most efficient player in what was a fairly abject performance. We are now 34 minutes in. There are over 1,100 people watching. Guess you can tell what sort of state we find ourselves in when we are pulling in numbers this high so early into a show. Let's rattle on to it then, because there is a big question that is going around on every social media site, every forum, every fans page at the moment. And that is tonight's title of the program, Time Up for Wayne Rooney, ? Just got a couple of polls for you. We're going to go around the group here. Passotti, they ran a poll straight after full time yesterday. They've had 512 votes as to whether or not it's time for Wayne Rooney to go. 349 are in favour of a change of manager, coming in at 68.2%. Ourselves here at Argyle Live, we ran a poll yesterday at full time. Over 1,300 votes on that Twitter poll. 80% of the fan base voting in favour of Rooney to leave the football club. Just 2 weeks ago, we had 1,100 votes on a similar poll. Only 62% that day said that it was time for Rooney to go. I have a charge sheet that I would like to bring against Mr. Rooney, and it's quite damning. One of the things we hear on a regular basis is it's tough to win on the road in the Championship. Well, actually, this season, the average win percentage in the Championship is 23%. Therefore, 1 in every 4 games statistically end in an away win. We're on 0%. Our XG overall, or XG against overall per match, is 1.73, the worst in the league. Our XG goals against at home, worst in the league. Goals against away, worst in the league. Worst XG away from home, you guessed it, it's Argyle, 0.7. We are averaging 2.23 goals per game, which is the worst in the league by a mile. As mentioned, record-breaking 49 goals in 22 games. It goes on and on. I mean, on average, away teams score 1.02 goals. We're doing 0.25 at the moment this season. They concede 1.49. We're conceding 2.75. It just goes on and on. 1 clean sheet in 22 games, which is the joint worst in the league. The only reason we don't have a worst record in the league is because Hull have played 1 more game than us. That's what it comes down to. 1 win in 13, a points per game so far of 0.81, which extrapolated over 46 games gives us 37 points. We all know that's not going to be enough. Wayne Rooney, as has gone round on social media, has the joint worst win rate in Argyle's 138-year history. If we lose on Sunday, he's in a league of his own. We failed to score in 10 games, 45% of all games we failed to score in. I mean, with all these stats, lads, with all this underlying data, which we're so keen on at Argyle, and we were told in a national radio interview that despite the underlying data, that there were reasons to have appointed Wayne Rooney. I'm not seeing it. Is time up, in your opinions, for Wayne Rooney to leave the football club?
I mean, because I interrupt you there, I'm going to start off with that and say that it absolutely has to be. For a few reasons. I will go for that data. Now, I love a stat myself, as regular readers of Argyle Life will be well aware, and that list is damning in a lot of ways, and it actually slightly angers me. I mean, perhaps as a massive nerd myself, that Hallett has kind of hidden behind this data sort of thing, as saying, oh well, his underlying data at Birmingham and other jobs was acceptable. That's why we gave him it. That cannot be true. There's no way that could be true. I mean, I'm not a football data professional, so maybe there's something that they've seen that we haven't. But every single metric you can look at from that Birmingham spell was appalling. There was nothing in there to go, oh well, he's been a bit unlucky there. He's done something here, or he's improved them there. He didn't. Every other permanent manager at Birmingham last season had a better record than Rooney did. So, it speaks a lot of volumes. But I mean, it's time to go now, and I think it's very important that it's done as soon as possible for a couple of key reasons. One of which is we are on the mid or on the brink of a very, very important transfer window. And making a change of head coach during that transfer window, as we saw last season, isn't necessarily something that that bears fruit for us. I mean, it could be if the director of football did a did did a job that we were confident in the transfer window. But I think that's a conversation for another day. So that's a change that I think, if you make now, you get the new manager in pre-transfer window, and give him the entire month to sort it for the players he wants. I think the other thing, and it's been going through the comments, one that's completely, that I completely agree with. We're not out of this by any stretch. It's not as if we're relegated at the moment. We're potentially, I mean, it would have to be a pretty big one, but we're potentially one win from safety, provided we put in about 12 goals. Maybe we need 2 games. I don't know. But this is not over, and we're very lucky to be in this position with a few of the late goals that we've had at home that have given us more points than I think are perhaps justified. I mean, okay, you can negate that with the points that we ought to have got against Sheffield United and Middlesbrough. But the fact that we're still in this fight, despite all of those metrics that you discussed there, Joe, is a minor miracle. And we can salvage this. But to salvage it, we've got to act.
Does that not show more so the lack of quality at the bottom of the division more than anything else?
I think it shows more that we've probably been quite fortunate, I would argue. I mean, yes, there are teams that I think we can overcome. I look at squad by squad, for example, and I think you've got Portsmouth who are doing very well. I would argue man to man, our squad is more than a match for them. So yes, there are teams down there that I think are quite poor. But had we been getting the results that we were say deserved or expected to get, I mean, we could easily be on say 10 points right now, without say that some of those last minute goals that flattered us in certain circumstances. So it does go to show, and I think it gives me encouragement sitting here bottom of the league and looking like there's no hope in the world, is that this situation is something that we turned around. Sheffield Wednesday were in a much worse position last season. They are a basket case of a club generally under Chancery. They changed their head coach and got results. QPR were in real danger under Gareth Ainsworth last season. It looked like they and Sheffield Wednesday were certainties to go, and it'd be a case for who would take the third bit. They changed their head coach and flew away from the relegation zone. And this season, after a shaky start, they are they're very much in a good place. It is time for Plymouth Argyle to do the same. It is time for us to make that head coach change, get a bit of good feeling going around the club, because we are not out of this. We're not out of this by a long shot. There's a whole heap of the season to go, and a change right now would go a long way to helping.
Well, we saw last season when the club became united again at the back end of the year, just what was possible with those
Absolutely.
the 2 home 1-0 wins, and obviously the win at Rotherham. I just want to go back to it. Last time I hosted the pod, I went on about this interview, and I'm going to go back to it again because John's in the comments, and there's been a couple others that say the argument was that his spell at Birmingham wasn't an adequate sample size, so they ignored it. Well, the exact lines from the radio interview that's being referenced was as follows. DC United's attack was strengthened. Defence also more modestly, but strengthened. We believe that you can't just look at results. You have to look at the impact a manager has on a team. You have to look at the underlying data, the performances before a manager arrives and afterwards, and that looks at other things other than wins or losses. The retort was that the orthodox you're thinking is that you have to take results into consideration, to which Simon Hallett responded, depends on how many results you're looking at. We look at underlying performance on the grounds that any individual outcome is a combination of the underlying performance and randomness or variation, or maybe even luck. So looking at small data sets and just analysing the outcomes is insufficient. At least that's what we believe. Sam, 22 games are not a small set of data sets. This is half a football season, and there isn't a single metric that we have improved. And I put the question out there, if somebody can put answers on a postcard to a single player that has improved this season, then
Adam Randall for me, but that's perhaps probably not due to Rooney. That's just due to his own incredible commitment and determination as a player. I agree entirely with Adam's conclusion. After the Swansea game, I said I would be very close to getting rid of him, but I would be at the point of giving him enough time to see the feeling impact. And admittedly, after some very small steps forward, it's now been an enormous step back. And I'm afraid to say now that I think this is just completely and utterly a lost cause at this stage. It is a complete lost cause. We are getting worse and worse. Not only have we not improved in any of those metrics, we've actually declined in all of those metrics. Randall is the only player who has substantially improved. Possibly JB. I'm not sure he was man of the match yesterday, Joe, but we won't go off on too much of a tangent there.
Thought Mob say he was.
Okay. I didn't have the best view in the second half. It was on a 7-inch screen. But okay.
Thought Mob also gave Adam Randall 3.8 or something. I think 3.9 it was. So,
and that's why you shouldn't listen to FOTMob.
No, I agree.
There's a lot more about FOTMob than anything else, doesn't it?
Randall wasn't good yesterday, but I think he has been good broadly over the season. And I think he hasn't had many stinkers, but on the games he has had stinkers, then those are the games we've been battered. So I think, as much as he has broadly been good this season, that might explain why we have had a few heavy defeats. But I think this is done. I think this is absolutely done. I met Wayne Rooney in Spain. After meeting him in Spain and Mr. Dewsnip and Mr. Shuttleworth, I said, and I quite openly said, maybe, just maybe, I'm mad enough to think this will work. And if it doesn't work, it won't be due to lack of trying. I don't think it has been down to lack of trying, but it has not worked. And it's time to course correct and to make the change and to replace the manager. I think Mike Phelan can be, I keep calling him Mick Phelan. I don't know why I do that. It's a weird verbal habit of Mike Phelan. Can be caretaker manager for a game or two. And then it would depend on the new manager whether they want to bring in other coaches. But this cannot continue. He does at times talk well about football, Wayne Rooney. He hasn't been talking about the last few weeks. He looks visibly deflated. He looks like a forlorn man, shoulders hunched, head down. He can and has talked well about football. And I wish him all the very best. I think he'll be a good pundit on the Overlap or Sky Sports or, World Cup, BBC Match of the Day or whatever it may be. But he is not a manager. He has had 4 managerial tenures. I think only of those 4, Derby could you say was a success. And if you believe a lot of their fans, that was down to the impact of Liam Rosenior. DC United, yes, he did modestly improve, as Simon had it said, but from a very low starting point, let's be honest. Birmingham was a disaster, and Plymouth Argyle has been a disaster. It just can't continue. I absolutely believe that Wayne Rooney is passionate. I give every credit to him that he's come completely out of his way to a bit of a, forlorn part of the country, and he's fully put his heart and soul into it. I think he really wants to have a successful career in management, but he wants to have a successful career in management in the same way of when I was a teenager and I brought Football Manager game, and I would, really get excited about it at Christmas for the first few weeks, and then I would realize I wasn't very good at it and get fed up of it. And unfortunately, wanting to be good at something isn't the same as being good at it. And Wayne Rooney is not good enough. It's time to make the change. And in my view, it's time to do it now. I think given the noises coming out of the club with the pre-match Oxford content, he is going to get the Oxford game at least. Personally, I don't believe he should. I think he should be on his way tonight. But he is going to get the Oxford game. Who knows if we can? I think if we can put in a performance akin to how we did against Sheffield United Middlesbrough, we will probably beat Oxford because we're very good in both those games. And then if that happens, he'll probably get a bit more time. But I think this is absolutely done now. And I think, a comment coming in from Alex Mitchell saying Foster must feel hard done by looking at Rooney currently. Yeah, Foster now is at the point of having a much better points per game than Rooney. Better win ratio, better points per game, better underlying.
He's above Wayne Rooney on that list that Rooney's now joint bottom of.
Well, yeah, I suppose the only, it's not a metric, but the only area in which Foster is doing worse than Rooney is vibes, right? Because Rooney is still, to his credit, although he looks like he's got a face like a long wet weekend, he's not getting snappy. He's not getting narky in interviews. He's not snapping. He's not turning on the fans. If anything, he's turning on his own players maybe, but he's not. He's not getting.
He's done that a couple of times, and he's he threw Callum Wright into into the mire yesterday, didn't he, after the game? And
that was deserved, that tackle. You know, I gave my view on that tackle at the start of the show, and I think Callum Wright deserved every word of that, to be honest. I really don't like to lay into individuals, but when you do a stupid tackle like that at 4-0 down, I think I will make an exception. But yeah, I think it's done. I've rambled on enough. That's my view. It's done.
And Aaron, before we move it on to Oxford, because I am mindful that we do have another game in 48 hours. Not 48 hours from now, because that would be a very late kickoff. But you know, we should also be mindful here that yes, there have been situations where we have clearly not been set up appropriately, and we haven't changed games to potentially deal, like yesterday, not dealing with the situation of the issue coming down their left, our right. But there's other things at play here, isn't there? The players, the questions have to be asked of the players whether or not they've done enough in a number of games this year, because they have gone under, as we've already alluded to in this situation. And as Sam mentioned there, to be fair to Wayne Rooney, as we all know, and as the footballing world knew, there wasn't a lot of data available that suggested he should even have been employed for this job at the start of the year. So it's all just a bit of a mess at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I tweeted similar to what Sam said last night. Just give it up. Just have some pride. Go back to your family. Just admit that this isn't working out. It's not going to work. And if you still want to be a manager after this, go and spend some time like studying other managers, going to training grounds, seeing what they're doing, learning techniques, and then go get a pay packet in Saudi. Because, mate, that's the best thing for you. Because I don't know why it's doing it to himself. I think on the players' side of things, I think again that's where experience comes into it. Like you said, endless balls down that left. Anybody with a brain could see that and makes adjustments. Obviously, we're again not going to pile into Tegan, but or Bundu or anyone, I can't remember who replaced Bundu. Like you just jumping in, just know.
Just jumping in, not like Callum Wright did yesterday, but if we're talking about leaders and being more experienced in things, go back to the Leeds United game. Look at the amount of experience that started that game with the likes of Forshaw, Houghton, Paulson, Gibson, all of those players all starting that game, whether or not, whatever we think of their abilities, and yet they still did not get themselves out of a problem where they conceded 3 goals in 9 games. There's enough experience on that pitch to pull the younger, less experienced players together.
3 goals in 9 minutes. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, that's what I said, wasn't it?
You said 3 goals in 9 games.
All right, 3 goals in 9
games. I wouldn't mind.
3 goals in 9 games. Yeah.
Remarkable.
But you know what I'm trying to say, don't you? There's enough experience on that pitch to pull the less experienced players in and saying, look, we're not conceding again, and yet we did.
The difference is there, though, that they all have experience. They just don't have any legs. So, like, you need a fine balance in that. And my nephew is, I don't actually know, I should have asked him, 12, 13. And even he could see like the glaring mistakes that were being made yesterday. One thing he did notice, actually, that I said I'd mention is whilst Frank Lampard spent majority of the 90 minutes on that touchline ordering people around, when we had somebody stood up in the box, it was predominantly Mike Phelan, not Wayne Rooney. So I think that says a lot as well. Somebody that is experienced, somebody that has played the game at the highest level, should know who should be where as a head coach of a championship team. If he's not telling these inexperienced or predominantly inexperienced players where they need to be and where they should be and what they should be doing, then the whole thing's lost. I'm with Sam that I think it's game over for him now.
The only reason I bring up like the Leeds debacle with those 10-minute spell, and you think back to the Norwich game and even the Bristol City game and things, is because I'm a little bit mindful that we don't just all pile in on Wayne Rooney and it's all his fault, because everyone knows at times this season the players have not done enough to help him out.
But there is also a level of playing for your manager, and I think Callum Wright summed that up yesterday, that they're not doing that anyway. So look at Wolves. Absolutely terrible recently under Gary O'Neill. They get a new manager in, some geezer that's liking some inappropriate things on Twitter and retweeting that sort of stuff, and instantly go and win 2 on the bounce. Like, There is a point where the players just give up, and I think they gave up weeks ago. I just don't think the hierarchy have noticed that yet.
I hope they haven't given up, because there are
Well,
going to be. Let me mute yourself, please. Go back to being a panelist. Because there are going to be hundreds of brave souls heading to Oxfordshire on Sunday afternoon, Adam, and we do have to now try and pick the positives out of things and look at trying to get back on track, because the only thing they could, we said it a couple of weeks ago, the only thing they can do after a performance like that yesterday is go out and put it right on Sunday. As I mentioned, 7 of our strongest 11 potentially are going to be available to us. It sounds, the murmurings that we're getting, not that we've heard anything official, is that we're not going to have a fit striker available to us. What on earth are we going to do with the team?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, isn't it? That
Actually,
if...
let me start. Let me go back. Let me start again, because we're on to the team discussion. Is it time to take Dan Grimshaw out of the firing line?
Okay, yeah, I can answer that one. I would
We'll
argue
start
that
from there.
right now, yes, it probably is. And I am a Grimshaw fan, and I like what he's done for much of the campaign, but he's in really poor form. That first half yesterday, he made up for it with a few saves in the second half, but the first half yesterday was one of the worst displays of shot stopping from an Argyle keeper in a very long time, I think. And that, along with his distribution, is meant to be one of his strengths. So, he's got talent and potential, but when you're in poor form, and there's a replacement ready, you expect to lose your place in the side. And I think right now he should probably lose his place in the side for Hazard. And if it turns out that Hazard gets the shirts and he's out of form, then there's a ready replacement for him as well. I think it makes a lot of sense to make that change. Now, I've seen a few comments around social media that it might be an idea to play Grimshaw at home and Hazard away, and I can see why people would think that. I can see some merit to it. I wouldn't necessarily want to go that far, for the simple reason of, it gets rid of the familiarity. It's a bit difficult the defence playing with a different goalkeeper every week. But I'm certainly not opposed to saying, well, when one keeper's so out of form as Grimshaw has been, that we take him out of the firing line and bring in the other guy. And if he gets the shout and if he loses it, then then Grimshaw gets it back. It's a shame, because for a lot of this season, actually, Grimshaw was one of the top performers in this league with his shot stopping and his distribution. I think even though that's taken a bit of a dive, I think we'd all agree that his distribution is in general a huge positive of his. But yeah, he's lost that. I mean, but it is, I'm rambling on about the same thing, but you have 3 key attributes as a goalkeeper. You've got the shot stopping, distribution, and command of the area. He's never really had command of the area, but he has had the shot stopping and the distribution. When one of those goes, I think it's time then to consider making the change. And that shot stopping in recent weeks has gone. So honestly, Hazard in.
Just to go back to something I made in the podcast a few weeks ago, which I think was kind of true then, but it's even more pertinent now. And I'm going to do what I often do that annoys Aaron, which is make a cricket analogy, which is that, and Adam will appreciate this, and maybe Joe would as well. People say about Ben Stokes, he's not a great catcher, he's a maker of great catches, which is that he will often make a spectacular diving catch, but he will often steal the simple catches or not get opportunities he should get. And I think that's the same with Dan Grimshaw. He's not a great shot stopper, he's a maker of great saves. He will make the very occasional fantastic reflex save, like on his debut, but he will not get down. I don't think I've ever seen anyone who just like gets down so late. Like the shots in the air, he is genuinely good at. He'll make a great reflex save, but down to his right hand side or down to his left hand side, he cannot get down. He is a slow diver for a keeper, a really slow diver. And for League One, I'm sure he's okay with that because the shots are a bit slower, the shots are maybe from a bit further out, they don't have so much power behind them, all these little variables. But in the Championship, when you're dealing against these better finishers who get the ball right in the corner, the better quality opponents, I think he's out of his depth. The distribution is genuinely very good most of the time. The shot stopping is acceptable. I wouldn't say good, because like I said, I think he's a maker of great saves. He's not a great shot stopper, but the shot stopping is acceptable. The distribution is normally good. The command of area is non-existent. I'm sorry, he so rarely comes off his line. Bizarrely, I think that particular aspect, if anything, has actually got slightly better in recent weeks. He's actually come and got a couple of crosses that he maybe wouldn't have got before, but that very marginal improvement in that area has been discounted by the shot stopping becoming far, far worse. The amount of saves that he's not made, that he should have made in recent weeks, is far too many. And Connor Hazard, who was actually on very good form going into his injury, who I've never been the biggest fan of in the world, I will admit quite freely, but I think his average level is better than the level Grimshaw's at now. His best level is a lot better than the level Grimshaw's at now. So we bring him in, see how he does, and give Grimshaw the chance to come back into the team if need be, I guess.
Aaron, a friend of mine pointed out to me today, and I'm going to rattle them off for you. Barley, from what we know, providing what was true that was going around about Andre Gray, Mumba, Ogbeta, Houghton, Plegaswelo, Such, Gibson, JB, Randall, Hazard, Galloway, Morosi, Forshaw, Alhaj, Sorinola, Grimshaw, Isaka, Finn, Paulson. By my count, that's just 17 fit available players for Sunday. One of them being the aforementioned 16-year-old Tegan Finn, who was perhaps one of the bright sparks of yesterday. I mean, where do you piece the team together there?
Well, you can't do much about it, can you? You just have to take those 17. You just got to work with what you got. Luckily, we've only got one game until that January window opens. Well, two, because I can't imagine we could register anybody in time for Bristol City, but just got to get through it. I think we've all been waiting for January for so long now that just get through whatever. If you have to play Marco Morosi at right back, just do it. Who cares? It literally can't be much worse. So I think it'll be most probably another start up at Oxford for Tegan Finn.
We've got to really hope these stories about Andre Gray that are purely social media conjecture aren't true, haven't we? That he is actually going to be fit, and it wasn't an injury that took him. It wasn't an injury that took him off yesterday.
Oh no, I just think he's just still not up to speed of the league. I think he's gone in January. I would. If I'm married to a Little Mix star, I'm not going to be pissing about in Plymouth, getting battered every
Family
week.
show.
I would. I would be off as well, personally. Like it's not doing him any good. He's got a nice little highlight reel of those 2 goals against Watford to leave the club with. Hardly his fault that we're getting smashed. Granted, runs like his boots are full of treacle, Dominic Blizzard-esque. But again, we knew that when we signed him, he wasn't going to be overly ready. If he's injured, he's injured. I go into these next 2 with absolutely no hope anyway, so what difference does it make? Sorry, I know that's incredibly defeatist, but going back to what Adam said on Oxford, anybody who's played darts with me will know that my maths isn't great, but I make it a 6-0 win up at Oxford and we leapfrog them. So we'd be 2 places out of the playoffs. So, yeah, there we go. Yes.
Sam, there was a story a couple of weeks ago from Wayne Rooney that suggested it was a long shot that Ibrahim Sissoko was going to be potentially fit enough to be on the bench tomorrow. Whilst I've just rattled off that we've only got 17, potentially at most 18 fit players available on Sunday, we also don't want to be rushing one back and potentially causing bigger issues here, do we?
No, we don't. No, we don't at all. It's so frustrating because Oxford away, poor team on a I know they won yesterday, generally on a poor run. Bristol City home, they're a decent team, but they're very up and down. And Stoke away, who are also on a terrible, terrible run. So, blimey. That's the 3 games you really want a decent squad and a decent manager for. What I can just honestly see happening, because that's how Sod's Law turns out, is we'll get maybe 0 points or 1 point from those 3 games. Rooney will get sacked. We'll get a decent manager in, and we'll get the squad back to fitness. and then it's a tough run of games coming up that's harder to get points from, just because that's how it will work. And then, despite being a better team, because we're playing tougher games, we'll only get a handful of points from there. It just seems like it's all happening at the worst time. You know, when it's the games where we're just not going to win anyway, we have a full strength team. When it's the games that we do have a chance of winning, we're completely, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Depleted. That's the word. So yeah, I don't know about it at all. I'm very pessimistic about the prospects, but you can, like Aaron said, you can only play with what you've got, can't you? So I guess if it is true that Bundu and Gray are both injured, I mean, who on earth is the front three going to be, assuming it's broadly the same formation?
Well, it'd be Hatch one side, or Hatch up top.
Hatch is injured as well.
Hatch is out for the season.
Not Hatch, sorry, the other child. Finn up top, Saka one side.
And who else?
Mumba the other, Powson at right back.
So I suppose it would have to be Mumba, but then it would have to be, if it's going to be 4-3-3, so you keep the same three of Randall, JB and Al-Hajj. You maybe put Sorinola in at right back, or God knows, maybe it'll even be Poulsen, given what Rooney seems to think. He seems to like Poulsen more than Sorinola. But I would certainly say Sorinola of those two. So it's going to be Sorinola right back, the normal midfield three, and a front three of probably Mumba, Isaka and Finn. Blimey. We were laughing the other week about how our COVID season, when the final whistle blew at Gillingham away on the final day, our back five, including the keeper, was McCormick in goal. Then it was Edwards right back, Tomlinson, Fornar and Ryan Law as the back four. But I think having a front three of Mumba, who's a fullback, Isaka, who's 18 and has scored one goal, for us, and Tegan Finn, who's 16 and has made 2 appearances for us, having that as our front three will be quite concerning, shall we say. Pretty much a full-strength defence, pretty much a full-strength midfield, and maybe Hazard coming in goal, but the front three is diabolical there, isn't it, really?
One way to cover over the defeat that will happen up at the Kassam is it too late for Rooney to do a Tisdale? Can he sign on? Because if we started Wayne Rooney up top in an Argyle shirt, it wouldn't matter about the result. That would be worldwide news, and we'd sell loads of shirts. In the nicest possible way, I would be slightly worried for the poor man's health if you were to do that. I don't think he's up to the strain of playing championship football. I wouldn't.
He got through 20 minutes of the charity game, didn't he, at Old Trafford against Celtic a few international breaks back. Let's go round the group then. Let's get the score predictions for Oxford on Sunday afternoon. Aaron Hocking, what's your score prediction?
3-0 Oxford.
Sam Down?
Yeah, I think he literally took the exact score I had. I don't think we're going to score because we have no senior attacking players. We literally do not have any senior attacking players at all. We have their fullback at position and a young pro and an apprentice. So I don't think we're going to score. But given that it is only Oxford, I guess we probably won't get battered either. So yeah, logically 3-0, I would agree.
Adam?
I'm going to be the optimist here, which speaks volumes about how the predictions have gone. I'm just going to say it's 2-0 Oxford.
2-0 Oxford. I'm actually going to say that it's going to be 2-1 Oxford. I do wonder if we might be able to nick something. Who knows? It may come from a Randall free kick or something, or an own goal, as mentioned in the comments. I actually did 2-2 in the predictions league, which hopefully we'll have an update for either possibly not after the Oxford pod, but maybe after Bristol City or Stoke City, just to see how we're going. But I'm not sure I'll be making up too many points on that one. Anything else you boys want to cover in tonight's episode? We've been going now for an hour and 10 minutes. Over 1,400 people have given up their Friday nights to join us. We're incredibly grateful. Anything else you want to cover?
Just a quick one. In the news broken tonight that Norris Pilac has been sacked by Stoke, just confirming that obviously what a basket case Stoke are, obviously after the Schumacher debacle of sacking him so prematurely. I wonder if now Schumacher, with his feet up, maybe enjoying his Christmas with his family with a wry smile on his face at what a shambles both of his former clubs are. He's clearly not going to go back to Stoke after the way it ended with Jonathan Walters. I think we probably all four of us around this table or around this virtual table are agreed we would probably, correct me if I'm wrong, take Steven Schumacher back if the opportunity arose. Do we think Steven Schumacher would come back to Argyle in the current state?
Not at the moment, because Wayne Rooney's still employed as head coach.
Yeah, but come on. I know that's a semi-joke answer, Joe, but that even despite that, we all know that in reality, most clubs do negotiate with potential prospects before making the decision to sack, don't they? Stoke had Pilac lined up the minute they sacked Schumacher. So do we go all in for Schumacher? Do we draw a line under this pretty terrible 2024 for the club and pick up 2025 where 2023 left off and try and get him back in? I know that some people in the comments are saying, no way, I'm not taking a rat back. If it keeps us up, it keeps us up, is my opinion. And if it doesn't keep us up, I can't think of anyone in a better position to get us back up than Steven Schumacher with a full summer of a League One squad.
All I want is to stay in the Championship. I don't want to go back to League One.
Well, I don't ideally, but if we do, I can't think of anyone better than him to get us back up. I've got to say the consensus in the comments does appear to be no to Schumacher. There's a bit of a mixed view. Some are saying, one or two saying yes, but the consensus in the comments is no to Schumacher, and I'm surprised because, look, no matter how he left us, let's just imagine he never was at Argyle. Imagine he took up, say, Pompey in with 101 points and then left for Stoke and got sacked. In that scenario, we'd all be loving someone with that CV, someone who got 101 points with a mid-table League One budget, who then, was then harshly sacked by Stoke with the best points per game record of any manager they've had since going into the Championship. Taking aside how he left us, that is a really good CV, right? That is probably, people talk about Tony Mowbray. Is he going to come? He is thankfully, mercifully in recovery from his recent health crisis. But is he going to want to come down to Plymouth Argyle? Is Mark Robbins going to take the Plymouth Argyle job? I think both of those two are going to wait for better. I think Schumacher's the only one who would. Yeah, completely agree with the comment coming in from Tom Kirk saying Schumacher back for me. Football is riddled with mistakes. He made one. Get over it. Couldn't agree more.
You mentioned there about Steven Schumacher getting 101 points, and if it was Portsmouth, what have you? Well, Paul Cook got Portsmouth up a few years ago, didn't he?
He could probably do worse, dare I say it, than him.
Anything else other than talk of Steven Schumacher from Adam and Aaron? Anything else?
I think the eagle-eyed viewers will realise that I am staying in the same house as Sam Down. I mean, he's already mentioned it. So those not listening but just watching us in boxes will realise that I'm staying in Sam's house. And downstairs in the toilet, there is a framed photo of the title-winning squad all celebrating that final day against Burton. Oh, not the final day, but the final home game against Burton in the changing rooms. And it makes me incredibly sad every time I use the toilet. BT mentioned it earlier, the dismantling of the title-winning squad is sad. And it's just like, I don't understand how we've spent money and arguably, not arguably at all, allegedly improved this squad by bringing in better players. We look absolutely terrible compared to that. I think going back to the Schumacher debate, I'm not really asked who comes in, just anybody that isn't Wayne Rooney, to be honest. And making a 6th or 7th hire in a row, whatever it is, that's a Scouse manager, if we bring Schumacher in, is fine by me. But I think if he comes in, I'm just going to completely forget that 2024 ever happened on both a footballing and personal note, as the others will know, and just pretend that he went on holiday for a couple of months and I woke up in 2025. And Steven Schumacher is still our manager going into January. We're still in the same relegation fight that we were last year, and we'll just see how it goes. And if we go down, I don't see a manager being better placed than Steven Schumacher to get us back up. But none of the good players in this squad will stay anyway, so it's going to need a complete overhaul anyway. So just do it now. Pull the plug.
It's
whilst
funny.
There's time. Get him in.
It's funny you should mention about the title-winning squad being dismantled, etc. After 22 games last season, 16th place, 7 wins, 5 draws, 26 points on the board this time last year. We are 8 points worse off this year, and many people will tell you that it was a harder division last year than it is this year, even if this year is a little bit more even. An hour 15, 1,400 plus joining us. I think it's probably time that we call it a night. Aaron's trying to shake his head.
The only thing I would say, I think it's, and Sam doesn't agree with me here. He thinks that it's going to continue, but I think it's the end of this head coach experiment. I think just get in a manager, give them the control that they want, whatever. I still believe in the recruitment team. I still believe they can do a job. Some of the players who've signed, yes, we're always going to have to take gambles. We're going to have to take risks. Most of them have been okay. We've just lost more than we should have, really. And just give whoever comes in, just give them the manager title, end the head coach debacle with Ian Foster and Wayne Rooney. Job done. We've proven that doesn't work, and just go again. Maybe take a little bit of the power out of certain people's hands who I'm not calling to be sacked, by the way, and just go from there.
I think I would do that. Whether they will do that is obviously another conversation. I think we've heard from the chairman in what's now become an infamous comment that or fans or a vocal minority being abusive, and we're going to be it's going to make us less likely to do things that that really ought to be done, which is a very silly thing to say. Maybe it's reverse psychology. Maybe one of us just needs to say, "Oh, Simon, you plonker, I want Wayne Rooney to stay," and see how he reacts. Maybe that'll be the ticket to getting what we need. But yeah, I agree with Aaron that it's time for a first team manager to be employed. I perhaps am with the comment of other people who have power in their hands, whether they deserve to be to lose their job as well. I am perhaps less forgiving on that one, considering the debacle that's come from the championship. But that's another discussion we could spend another hour and 15 minutes on. So I won't bore anybody. But yeah, I think the same messages has been reflected through this, is that it is time for a change. And I will say as well, whether it's backed up by the comments or not of what Sam said, given the opportunity and if he was willing to come back, I would hire Steven Schumacher tomorrow morning.
And just to quickly jump in on that point Adam made, by the way, with that Simon Halleck quote that has become, like, they're rather infamous about, that the fans being abusive towards Foster made him sort of more inclined to dig in and not make a change. I want to just say with that, nobody's being abusive to Wayne Rooney that I can see. I've not seen any personal comments, nothing aimed at his family. I've not even heard a single Rooney out chant to the game. I've heard people shout it, but I've not heard any chants the same way I have with Foster.
You weren't there. Sam, you weren't there in the second half yesterday. There was a Coventry City chant of you're getting sacked in the morning, which was joined in by.
We've heard plenty of it from opposing fans now, and I'm sure we say far more.
If you let me finish, Sam, which was joined in by a large majority of the away end yesterday.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. Well, okay, well, like I say, Sam. That is the first time then. Yeah, I love that comment, buddy. Congratulations, lads and Sam. I don't know if that's a backhanded comment saying that I'm not a lad, but thank you anyway. It's a very kind comment, irrespective of that. Thank you to all of you tuning in. By the way, absolutely incredible numbers. I think 1.4K at peak. So that's just superb stuff. But yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, nobody's being abusive to Wayne Rooney. We've only just heard any semblance of Wayne Rooney chanting. Nothing like the level of ferociousness we saw towards Ian Foster. By the way, not even close. So if that is true, that fans being abusive was making the board hold back on sacking Foster, which I agree with Adam. I do think, I like the hope Simon Halleck regrets that comment, because I think for a man who has broadly by and large done a very good job getting us where we are, I don't think that was a smart comment at all. If it is true, then there's no excuse now not to sack him, because nobody's being abusive now, right? So, yeah, we'll see. I think he's got to be close, right? We've not really mentioned the 18-hour silence. Thank you, Jay says, Aaron, watch your mouth, you're in his house. I'll be honest, it's actually not my house, it's George's house, but I do live here, so I still have seniority over Aaron. We haven't touched going back to the 18-hour silence after full time. That maybe suggested to me something was brewing, but he's clearly got the Oxford game. If we lose to Oxford or even draw and play badly, it's then a 3-day wait again to the Bristol City game. I would be surprised if he wasn't in charge, unless it's like another 4 or 5-0. I'd be surprised if he wasn't in charge for Bristol City. And just a thought, again, we talk about funny parallels and funny events. Our last manager was sacked after a loss on a bank holiday at home to Bristol City, Ian Foster. Wayne Rooney was sacked from his last job after a New Year's Day game at Birmingham. Could those two parallels come together again and Wayne Rooney be sacked for Plymouth Argyle after a New Year's Day loss to Bristol City? We will see.
That almost sounded like the host of the podcast signing off at the end there. We have been going for an hour and 20 minutes, so I think we've probably exhausted every last bit out of this podcast tonight. And don't fear, because we will be back after Oxford on Monday night, isn't it? Monday night we'll be back.
You can if you like.
I believe. But you won't be there. I've just checked the podcast. I'm going to name and shame them. I've just checked the podcast availability thread, and I'll be joined by Sam and Adam by the looks of it. So no grimacing, Sam. You've ticked it as available.
I just realised I've double booked.
Well, you can unbook because you're on the podcast. But we should be back on Monday in some form, even if we just do it as a space on X. But this will not be the final show of 2024. But we should be back on Monday night. So thank you for all the kind comments throughout the night. We really do appreciate the comments. As I say, nearly 1,500 people watching this evening. To Aaron, to Adam, to Sam, thank you very much for joining me. And I'm going to leave you with this. I refer back to Tom Kirk's comment from earlier on. Schumacher back for me. Football is riddled with mistakes. He made one, get over it. And I'll leave you with a quote from Bruce Lee. Mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them. See you on Monday.